The day my mother found out she was dying, she asked me to go out and buy her these clear glass marbles. Dad and I hadn't even known she was ill, which was nothing new. When you asked my mother if she was ill, she would throw things at you. Sesame buns, the editorial page, a handful of hair ribbons. Do not, she would say, suggest things to suggestible people. Anyway, I brought her the marbles, and she counted out 90 of them and set them in this old cut glass bowl, which was the sum total of Great Aunt Helena's estate. Apparently, the doctor had given her 3 months, and she set great store by doctors. She always believed them, she said, because they were the nearest thing to the Old Testament we had. I wouldn't give you 2 bits for those young, smiley guys, she'd say. I go for a good, stern, furrowed physician. She wouldn't even have her teeth cleaned by a dentist under 50. So she counted out 90 clear glass marbles and set them in the bowl on her bedside table. Then she went out and spent $1,200 on nightgowns. She said, in my family, you are only dying when you take to your bed. And that, my darlings, is where I'm going. And she did. We hashed it around. Dad said she couldn't possibly be dying, but the doctors convinced him. I told her it seemed a little medieval to lie up there and state, but she said she didn't want to be distracted from what she loved, us, or what she wanted to maul. And she said there was nothing outside except drugstores and supermarkets and dry cleaners, and that, given her situation, they were beneath her dignity. I asked her what she intended to do up there, and she said, study French. Visit with us, generally maul, and maybe call a few pals. Study French? She said she made a pledge to herself years ago that she would die bilingual. Dad and I cried a lot, but she didn't. He was fun to cry with. From then on, the doctors had to come see her because, as she put it, she came in with a house call and she was going out with a house call. And all day, every day, she held one of these marbles in her hand. Why? She said it made the day longer. Mother had her own bedroom. That was the way it always was, for as long as I can remember. She called my father the Thrasher. Dad could really get into a nightmare. Apparently, early on in the marriage, he'd flipped over and broken her nose. And that was it. Separate beds. Her room was very spare, really. Wooden floors, an old brass and steel bed, oak dresser, bedside table, and don't ask me why, a hat rack. No pictures on the walls. She never understood how people could look at the same darn thing day after day. She said it was bound to deflate the imagination. We'd sit with her after dinner and talk about issues. She told us she was too far gone for gossip or what we ate for lunch. And then we'd all turn in. And in a little while, just before I drift off, I'd hear. Happened every night. After the third or fourth day, I saw one on the floor and started to pick it up, but she said, "Leave it." She said it very sharply. I asked how come. She said she was learning to let go of them. Oh, she passed the time. There were things she wanted. She made out a list of children's books from her own childhood, and we got as many of them as we could find from the library. She said they were still the only good books she'd ever read. She wrote notes to, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 people, and they told us later on that they were sort of little formal goodbyes. Each one recalling some incident or shared something not very significant. But the odd thing was that in each one she included a recipe. A recipe in every one of them. We got out the big cookie tin, full of snapshots that somehow never became a scrapbook. She liked that. She showed my father how she handled the medical insurance and how to do the accounts. We went through her jewelry. She wrote down the names of the roofers and the plumbers and the air conditioning people. She called it wrapping it up. "This is good," she'd say. "I'm wrapping it up." She had the television moved up into her bedroom, and she called me aside to say that it was entirely possible that she might reach a stage where she really wouldn't know what she was watching, but that I must promise her I'd keep it on PBS. Later on, when it started getting hard, she told Dad and me that she would like to spend more time alone. "I'm afraid," she said, "that I'm going to have to do this more or less by myself." She said she was glad, and she hoped that we would be, that this was arranged so that you got less attached to the people you loved at the end. The next period isn't worth going into. It was just hard. You know that from the very beginning to the very last, she never admitted to any pain. Never. He called it the chills. The last thing she asked for was a picture he had in the front entrance hallway of a Labrador retriever she and Dad had owned when they first got married. He was, she said, a perfectly dreadful dog. When you are young, she said, you believe in the perfectibility of dogs. I was in bed 2 weeks ago Wednesday toward dawn. Then this. Dad and I ran in there. The bedside table had turned over, and she was gone. Dead. When the emergency medical people got there, they found this. The rest had spilled when the table fell, but this one was still in her hand. I keep it. I keep it in my hand all day. It makes the day longer.